Harihi Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada. So, continuing with the Kaurava's hatred grows. Right? So, Dhritarashtra, we remember Akrura came to check what was happening. Akrura, having seen everything, then discussed with Dhritarashtra, and in discussing with him, he pointed out that he's being more favorable towards his own sons and not to the Pandavas, and because of this, he'll actually destroy the whole dynasty. And so then Dhritarashtra, he understands it. He doesn't like it, but he fully understands it. So then we see here then Dhritarashtra, then he consulted with Bhishma, Vidura, and the Brahmins. They all decided that Yudhishthira should be installed as prince regent. The ceremony was soon performed and the people rejoiced. Remember before the people, the citizens were saying, because when you have your spies out and checking what the public is saying, you want to know what their opinions are and this and that, not, whether they, think Manchester United will win or not. That's not what you're trying to find out. You're trying to find out what their, the feelings are towards the government, so in that way the government can figure out, are they doing things right or wrong? And if they're doing things right and people are still dissatisfied, who are these people that are dissatisfied? What is their intent? Right? So whether it's a fault on the public's part or a fault on the government's part. So it's not you're looking for who's against the government. You're looking for where's faults, where the actual fault lies. So then the people, they were showing that interest, desire that Yudhishthira would be the king. And so then, they've gone with that. Duryodhana, however, seething with indignation, how had his father bypassed him to make Yudhishthira prince regent? When Bhima sneered at his distress, making it even more unbearable, he went with Karna and Dushasana to discuss with Shakuni a way to eradicate the Pandavas. Right? So Shakuni's already, established himself as a well-wisher of Duryodhana. Dushasana is number two brother is very much favorable, and now Karna, is indebted to Duryodhana because he made him a king, because otherwise he was a Suta's son. He had all the qualities of a king, but he didn't have a kingdom. Shakuni's eyes narrowed as Duryodhana and the others vented their rage. He pressed his fingertips together to think. Right, he's going like this, it's like this. Something's wrong when people are doing this. Narrow eyes and like this. Yeah, so it's very, very classic, this one. The only answer, he said finally, is to get the Pandavas out of Hastinapur to a place where they can be killed without interference. We should somehow contrive to have them burned to death, making it seem like an accident. Duryodhana smiled, right? Because you see Shakuni's eyes narrow because he comes up with this dastardly idea. And Duryodhana smiles. He goes, this is an idea, right? But Karna was not so sure, right? Because Duryodhana is a politician. He just wants to win. He just wants what he wants. Karna, has his desires and all that, but he's willing to go through the effort. And, as a Kshatriya, like we see is that it was, you could say, didn't have the best of etiquettes in the way of being refined and gentle and respectful for elders. But when he came to establish himself at the martial position that Drona was having, he did so with his prowess. He came in, showed his prowess. He was just saying, I'm here, I'm serious, I can do whatever anybody else does. And so Karna, you see, always prefers, if there's a problem, have a proper battle. Don't just use politics to get everything done, because he knows the weakness of politics. Because politics, you do something with politics, someone else can do politics, and like that. He did not like Shakuni's devious ways. Only cowards resort to deceit and underhanded methods. Powerful men favor open combat. The Pandavas are our enemies, then let us march out to the battlefield and settle this dispute. And his point is they're family, but if they're considered they're the enemy, then we should fight with them. It's us against them. Of course, in this, they're always very enthusiastic. Karna, especially, to have a battle. Duryodhana is always thinking they're going to win, but they kind of forget that only a few days before, they were soundly defeated when they went to go fight with Drupad. And that's all of them together, because they would have all been there. And then the Pandavas, all 5 of them didn't even go. Only 4 went. It wasn't like Duryodhana is so respected, so Dushasana said, you stay here, and I and my brothers will go, and with Karna as the general. And like this, no. They just all go out there, vying like kids trying to, who's the first one to get to the samosa or something, And so then you see the Pandavas, then they leave Yudhishthir there, because he's the elder brother, and then the youngers, in service to their elder brother and their guru, then they go out, while the other ones were trying to establish themselves. So they forget how well they were defeated, and only 4 of them defeated Drupad, like that. But you'll see as a common theme throughout, they always forget this point. There's never a time when they've ever defeated the Pandavas, but they always think that they can easily do it, like that. Shakuni's lips tightened. Then he smiled slightly. He gets he gets upset, and then he smiles slightly and then speaks. Because Shakuni is older than them, because he's the brother of Gandhari. So Duryodhana's mother, Shakuni is his uncle. So he's senior to them. They're young. Well, he's, will be much older. So he has much more experience than that. So when it comes to politics and all this kind of stuff, he has way more experience than any of them. Then he smiled slightly. My child, you are powerful, but foolish. It seems you have forgotten Bhima's superhuman strength. And do you not remember the incident at Kampilia, right? So he's even bringing, Kampilia was when they went, the capital of Drupad's kingdom. All of the Kaurava princes, with you by their side, could not overpower Drupad. But with only 4 fighting, the Pandavas were successful. It is unlikely that we will win in a confrontation with these 5 brothers. Take heed of my words. And notice in here, he always puts up we, He always says, we won't win. No, not you won't win. No, we won't win. Because if he says you won't win, he says, what do you mean? No, but if he said we won't win, it means we're a team together. So he's so expert, like that. So that's the thing in the modern thing of the political correctness. What is being forgotten is that political is actually the field, and correctness is just your presentation, diplomacy. Does that make sense? So in other words, it means diplomatic politics. That would be the other way of explaining political correctness. But it makes it sound like it's some wonderful etiquettes and all that. So you see, already here, 5,000 years ago, he's using, no, it's we, it's us together, we're a team. Like that, and that builds that, and all does all those nice things, and yes, okay, then we'll listen, because it's about us. Because if it's otherwise, it's you forget, then it's, oh, that's you, it's between you and me. But when we say, no, we, then it's kind of like, oh, then you have to think together. Reminded of Kampilia, Karna was embarrassed because he was there, right? He's Arjuna's equal in his mind, at least. And Duryodhana is Bhima's equal in his mind. And that's the 2 of them, right? Nakul and Sahadev were doing great, but it was only 2 brothers, as defending on the side. So you have Duryodhana and Karna there, and 100 brothers to help defend. And still they were soundly defeated. Well, Arjuna and Bhima, they only had two brothers defending, right? So it's just, they don't. He let out an angry shout, Karna. They had been taken by surprise there. But the point was, remember when they were going, before they even reached the capital, from the fields, because whenever you have a city, according to Manu, then Shastra states that you have a city, how big the city is, you have to have that much land outside of it, free, empty, flat land, because that's used for grazing cows or agriculture, or different things can go on there, programs can go on there, anything can happen out there. Or if there's a battle, it'll happen there, So before they even got into the kingdom, Arjuna already said they're not going to win. They're going to be defeated. He could already tell before, and he's saying, we were taken by surprise. But if they were taken by surprise, but Arjuna already knew beforehand, he was not surprised. The Pandavas, Drupad had been stronger than they expected. The Pandavas had the advantage, confronting Drupad after having witnessed his actual power. Okay, they witnessed the power, but how does that make a difference? It's like I go up to somebody who I think is, not very strong, and he hits me. And then, so however strong he hits me. But now that I've seen that, now suddenly he doesn't hit as strong, or what? How does this work? But, it sounds good. It sounds good. Next time, if the Pandavas confronted the Kauravas directly, things would be different, right? It's always just talk. Karna shook his head and left the room. Do what you will, but I cannot be a party to such cowardice. Right? His point is we will fight. And if you're just going to do diplomacy and politics and all these things, you guys do that yourself. Don't include me, because it's not his thing. That's not his strong point. He's not interested. The cunning Shakuni had carefully assessed the situation. He pressed Duryodhana to approach his father and asked for the Pandavas to be sent away. He knew that Dhritarashtra would not refuse his son anything. Duryodhana nodded slowly. He trusted Shakuni's judgment. Together they worked out the details of their plan. Then Duryodhana went to see the king. So Shakuni, he lives in the palace. He sees everything. He knows everything. He knows who's who. And so therefore, based on that, he makes his political plans. While Duryodhana won't be as good at observing and all that. We also see here, Karna's not. They're still too immature, like that. He's very powerful, but not very, powerful but foolish. But Shakuni's not foolish. He sees everything, knows exactly how everything's working. Just like Akrura came there, and after 2 months he understood the whole situation. Shakuni lives there, right? So he's been there longer, so he knows well. Dhritarashtra knew well of his son's hatred for the Pandavas. He knew that Yudhishthira's installation as the heir apparent had been a bitter blow to Duryodhana. The king thought about what he could do for his sons. He had spoken with Shakuni. His brother-in-law, knowing that Dhritarashtra never acted without counsel, had suggested that he seek advice from Shakuni's Brahmin friend, Kanika. Right? Because Dhritarashtra, being a proper king, means if it's very clear what to do, still you ask others just to confirm. And if you're not quite sure what to do, you ask others to get the proper ideas and perspectives so that you can make a proper decision. The whole idea is the king doesn't make decisions alone. He always works with those who are in the field. Because all these different persons that are there, they know the various shastras, they know the practical points, the generals know what's going on there, the ministers know what's happening in the kingdom. So you have to consider all of that together to make a decision. So Dhritarashtra, in that way, you can say technically, he knows everything very nicely. His weakness is his attachment for his son. That he's blinded by that attachment. So that's why we see the aspect of him being a blind king. It has more than one meaning, like that. So now Shakuni wants him to talk to his Brahmin friend Kanika, right? So Kanika is a nyayist. So not nyayist, niti. He follows niti. So niti is, you have Dharma Shastra, which is explaining the nature of things that you're working with, right? The philosophy explains how everything's connected to Krishna, everything's coming from Krishna. and how everything's nature is dependent on Krishna. Dharma Shastra then explains the nature of things as they are, the nature that can't change. What is the aspect that makes it unique, a particular thing? And so then if you act according to nature, you get the best out of something. So then Artha Shastra, then that's defining how to now get economic benefits or some benefit, some profit from the Dharma. Right? Because Dharma's there, you perform Dharma itself, everything will go smoothly. But if you're specifically looking for results in the way of benefits, then that is the Artha. Now so then you're looking at more the technicalities of it, rather than more the religious side of it. Niti then means that you're looking at simply the mechanics of something, how it works. Now, in Niti, means Niti is based on the Artha, is based on the Dharma. So if you actually understand it, there's no contradiction between them. So the proper thing is you knowing Dharma Shastra, then you appreciate Artha, and then know how to use Niti. But if you have someone like this, Kanika, he knows the other things, but his central point is Niti. Niti then becomes how to get done what I want, whether I should be doing that or not. That's what Dharma Shastra says. Just like it says, okay, let's say, for Niti, let's say I want to eat something. And so then the quickest way to get something to eat would be to go to the kitchen. And then in the kitchen, then in the pantry, and in the pantry, then something that is, you can just take it and eat it. Like some biscuits or something. So Niti would be that. But the point is it's time, it's time for puja or something. Are you supposed to be eating? That's Dharma Shastra. Right? So Niti doesn't look at that. It just looks how to get what you want to get done. Or it might be, it's Ekadasi. So are you supposed to be eating grains at all? So Dharma Shastra will explain that. Artha Shastra will look at, by following these rules, you'll get the best benefit. Because Artha you're looking for, you'll get now, but you have to see a longer term also. It's not the longest term, but it's now. Dharma will be now and future. And then Artha will be now and near future, and Niti will be immediate. Is that clear? So Kanika is dealing with Niti, which just means immediate. How to just be efficient. Whether it's proper according to Dharma or not, that's not so much considered. Right? If it's within the reasons that it's allowed, then you take it. But Dharma Shastra will allow some things because even people who are so materialistic, it'll show how they can be materialistic. And, they won't get sinful reactions. But the difficulty is that it doesn't mean that they won't get the results of that particular work. They've misused something, so in the future they'll get that unfortunate situation. They may not go to hell for it, they may not get punished for it, but in future births there will be problems. Right? So Kanika told Dhritarashtra that he should feel no compunction about rooting out his enemies before they harmed him. If you see, because he's taking harm means your son is not happy because he's not king. So by leaving the Pandavas, they'll become king, so therefore they're your enemies, and by them they're going to harm you by being king, and your son won't be king. Not necessarily that the Pandavas are going to come in the night and put him in a sack and then put him in a boat somewhere. That's not what it's talking about. But the way it's presented is like that. If you see the Pandavas as your enemies, then you should destroy them without hesitation by any means possible. Because if they're the enemies, you have to uproot, you use any technique it's necessary to get rid of them. But the problem is that the techniques that you use in the future, the reactions of those will come back to you. So we see Yudhishthira always uses proper things, so even though in immediate it looks like it's not working out as well for Yudhishthira, in the long run, they're emperors, then Duryodhana makes trouble, then after the trouble's removed, they're emperors again. And Duryodhana gets some immediate results, but then all his brothers, everyone connected to him is destroyed. That's the difficulty if you only use Niti. Right? Kanika cautioned that because they were stronger than the king's own sons, a direct confrontation would probably fail, right? So even Kanika, this Brahmin, materialistic Brahmin, he knows the Pandavas are stronger, right? So Shakuni pointed it out. Kanika knows it, kind of like everybody knows it, except Karna and Duryodhana. Better to employ some devious means, right? So, because you can't by strength, by proper Kshatriya strength, use some political position. In the meantime, the king should continue to appear as the Pandava's well-wisher. Then, as soon as an opportunity arose, he should strike. The idea is you're always nice to them, so they won't even know that, and then when you get it, then you strike. So Niti will explain these kind of things. And so it explains them on these higher levels. In other words, you're always going to, so in other words, from the Dharma platform of Dharma, you have the element that if an enemy comes to visit you, you treat him nicely. Because if I always deal nicely, let's say in the past we've had some problem. Now, if you come now and I meet and I deal nicely, it could remove that ill feeling. And so a proper friendship could start again. Because in the Dharma Shastra, it's about relationships so that they run smoothly and in a nice way so that you could be ultimately situated in God consciousness. That's the purpose. Dharma is to support the philosophy. But, so, therefore you're dealing nicely with the enemy. Not because it's political, because that's your duty. Right? It doesn't mean you're not intelligent and watching, but you're dealing nicely, right? Now, if you look at an arta, then by arta is that if I deal nicely, then maybe he won't be as upset. Maybe I'll get more benefits from it. Immediately I can get some more political work done, right? Niti is you look like you're friendly, but you're just waiting until you can strike and get done what you want to get done. You see how the three levels are there? So we have those elements that as they come down. So the Dharma is the actual origin of it. And so he's not using Niti with Dharma Shastra interpretation. He's using Artha and Dharma in Niti's interpretation. So that's why Shakuni wanted Dhritarashtra to speak to him, because he'll put his mind completely in this materialistic view. Dhritarashtra thanked the Brahmin for his advice and dismissed him. He sat alone in his chamber for some time. The thought of killing Pandu's sons distressed him, right? Because this is his brother. Perhaps there was some other way they could be removed from Hastinapur. While they were present, his own sons would never be happy. Duryodhana complained constantly about his cousins, right? All he's doing is, as long as they're there, he's just complaining. That's all. So he can never be happy, and so therefore Dhritarashtra as a father is always going to be disturbed, that his wife's going to be disturbed. The whole thing's disturbing. So we see, as we remember, that the appearance of Yudhishthira and his brothers, there's, the appearance of the Pandavas, then Yudhishthira and his brothers, there's an Akashvani, the demigods, spoke and gave some nice auspicious, this boy will do this, that, and so many great things. But when Duryodhana was born, then the vultures and the jackals, they were howling. And where were they howling from? Inside the temple. So it was not good. So that by those symptoms, Shastra says, that person will destroy the dynasty. So at that point, as we mentioned, Duryodhana could have been put out, given to the tribals in the forest. He would have been brought up there, like Ekalavya and all that. Ekalavya is very powerful, good, skilled and all that, but he's not in a position to create great political trouble, He'll be a strong person, probably be a leader in the tribe, but it won't go any farther than that. So that was the option, but because of attachment of Dhritarashtra, then he said, no, we'll keep him. And so you can see already, just his being upset is destroying the whole environment. If he was just satisfied that his cousins are there and they're all cousins and Yudhishthira is righteous and he'll take care of everybody and they'll all be peaceful and all be prosperous, then everything would be fine. But he's not. So it doesn't matter what it is, as long as they're there, he's upset. And it's their place, it's their kingdom, but he still is not satisfied. He still can't access. So you have to get rid of them in his mind. Now the monarchy was about to pass back to Pandu's line, because now it had gone over to Dhritarashtra. It's supposed to be Pandu, but it went to Dhritarashtra's line. It's supposed to pass back now. Dhritarashtra enjoyed his opportunity to occupy Hastinapur's throne as the world emperor. Although the firstborn son, and thus the first in line for the throne, he had thought his blindness had forever denied him the chance to be king. Right? So Dhritarashtra was the eldest, but he was blind. So eldest son should sit on the throne, but because he's blind, he can't. Pandu was the second son, but he wasn't blind, so therefore the throne passed to him. Then, because he was out in the forest, then Dhritarashtra was there, and so then basically until Pandu's sons grew up, then he would be the king until they were ready. Then they would be the heir apparent, and then as soon as Yudhishthira is crowned king, then Dhritarashtra and them, they would go into the background, like that. So they, instead of being the emperor, they would be Kshatriyas. And so Kshatriyas, they have their duties, they have their opportunities, they have their responsibilities, so they'll be busy and prosperous. But in the years since Pandu's departure, he had become accustomed to holding the reins of power. It would not be easy to let go, so he's become attached. That's why you see detachment is so important in the Vedic culture. You do your duties as long as they're, and when it's not, you just leave it. As Dhritarashtra sat in his darkened room, Duryodhana came to see him. He heard his son's heavy steps approaching and his sighs as he sat before him, right? So Duryodhana is so absorbed that he's walking in, the steps are heavy. As he says, he's so emotional like that. He's like, Dhritarashtra gently greeted the prince and asked what ailed him, right? It can only be one thing, but what specific thing today? I am hearing ill news of the kingdom, father. The citizens are growing restless. They want you to soon hand over the throne to the Pandavas. Right? So they're seeing that citizens are getting restless, so that's a bad thing, right? But why is it a bad thing? Because the power will go to someone else. Not that they're getting restless and they're against us. It's that they're favorable to the Pandavas. That's against us. Why should we have they're saying, why should we have the blind king now that Yudhishthira is grown? Are the words they utter? They care not for you or myself. Right? The point is a blind king is not supposed to be the king. And the point is it would go back because it's supposed to be there, Yudhishthira. So, but he's looking at it, why don't they like him? Why don't they like me? So it's just total illusion is what he's under. Duryodhana stood up sharply and began to pace, his gold ornaments jangling. As he strode about, he punched his hand with his clenched fist, so like this, does this. Soon we shall become dependent on the Pandavas. They will be the kings, and after them, their sons will inherit the throne. Thus our line will be plunged into misfortune. We shall become powerless and lose the honor we have long enjoyed. Right? What they're forgetting is they're all Kauravas. They're one family. They just happen to be cousins. So they're looking at it. Yudhishthira is known as the just. That's why the people want. He'll take care of all of them nicely. Duryodhana, being in the position of having authority, is not taking care of the Pandavas. So he's naturally, just as Yudhishthira, we remember before, that because he was so honorable and that, he figured everybody else was like that. So he was actually surprised when he found out that Duryodhana was making plans to kill Bhima. So Duryodhana has the same problem, that whatever he thinks everyone else is like that. So because he's so political and so envious and jealous, he thinks everybody else is. What could be more painful for us? I have been considering how to deliver us. Listen as I explain my idea. Okay, so we'll stop here, and then tomorrow we'll hear what is Duryodhana's idea. Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada.